Thanks very much indeed for coming in. The JSE apparently seems to be bucking the trend. Global markets, I think Asia, if not Europe, did have some positive spins. But why are we down locally?
I think, it's a combination of actually positive news. With a stronger rand, the rand hedges tend to pull back a little bit. So I think you're beginning to see, some of the effect of that strong rand coming into the market. But of course, remember that we were not so long ago at almost 50,000, and now we're closer to sort of 55,000. So you'd expect the market just to taper off just a little, in circumstances where we've had such a good run. Yeah,
I was saying earlier that the past 2 weeks, if not longer than that, demonstrates how international events are more related to your petrol price than domestic events, indirectly so, because international events affect the rand subsequently affects the petrol price. So in the lead up to the US elections, we've seen the rand strengthen as well. But now touching 14 rand, you would argue that we're still in a good space.
I think we probably got a little bit more to go. We could see it in the upper 13s, maybe even closer to the 1350 handle. The run-up to sort of 1470, I think, was on the back of a very strong White House, pushing this agenda of trade reform. Now, with a more balanced government in the US, maybe he'd need to soften his stance on that, President Trump, which I think will be good for emerging markets in general, and we'll see a little bit of capital coming back into emerging markets like South Africa.
Now, hopefully it's a good festive season as a result. One share price today I want to talk about, MTN, down about 2% earlier in the day. Now, the Reserve Bank warning that those billions of dollars, 8 to 10 or so, that the Reserve or MTN owes to or took out illegally, as they say, out of Nigeria, could affect the stability of banks here in South Africa. How does that work? And I mean, is it significant enough for us to talk about this?
If you think about $10 billion, I mean, to try and give some context around it, the Reserve Bank's gold and foreign exchange reserves are, depending on the day, close to about $45–50 billion. So, I mean, this at $10 billion, this is about 20% of, call it, the national government's foreign exchange reserve. So it's a big number, and if we have to see those funds being remitted offshore, it's going to have a very big impact on what we have left. So, I don't see it being as bad as that. I think there will come to some sort of negotiation, but certainly, the Reserve Bank coming out and saying that, such a large expatriation of funds, if you can call it that, outside outside the borders of the country is going to have an impact on our numbers.
And of course that relates to fines that are due in Nigeria by MTN. All right, mining and manufacturing data. Now the reason we look at this is because these are sectors that really feed into our GDP number. Economic growth, by far the most important factor in South Africa. Those numbers from the mining and manufacturing sectors are not pleasing at all. Mining down 1.8% for September, barely positive for manufacturing. Are we going to have another recession this quarter?
Listen, I think, we're all wiping our eyes here, because the numbers just seem to be getting worse and worse. Manufacturing basically flat, and you would expect in a sort of a weaker rand environment in the second quarter for us to have a little bit of an uptake on that number because, the exports look suddenly a lot better. And the rand from 13.50 to 14, is about 25–30%. So it's significant in the manufacturer's world, but certainly not translating into the numbers yet. And of course, I mean, mining was down. A big driver there was gold mining, and I think if you look at the numbers themselves, they tell you that the gold mining industry in South Africa is in a progressive decline. The gold price is not helping at all, and as a result, production numbers are down. So I think we need to really take a very hard look at the economy and see how we can address some of the shrinking industries and how we can assist those industries going forward.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Nesan Nair from Sasfin, thanks very much indeed for those insights. Tell us that's where we leave it for business for now.